Last year in, what was it? Probably July. Uh, I stumbled on Facebook on the Taiga Motorsport Snowmobile, and they were taking pre-orders. At the time, I thought it was interesting, but I didn't know if it was worth it or not. So I didn't think much of it. But at some point, I heard that they were making an interview, so I had a listen while I was working in a tractor, and I was surprised because they answered every single questions I had as a engineering standpoint, meaning how do you deal with the temperature, high temperature, low temperature, battery management system, and all that. And for some reason, they were able to answer every single one of my questions in that interview. So I'm gonna put the link in the interview here if you want to have a listen. I highly suggest that you do have a listen. It was a nice podcast. So after listening to that interview, I was like, man, that's if they could do what they're saying in that video, man, it's gonna be awesome. I know what these snowmobiles are capable of, so I told myself if it could do something like this, because it's electric powered, if it could do something similar, but full size, it's gonna be awesome. So without thinking much, I put a deposit on it because it was fully refundable. They had two options. One was standard pre-order, and one of them was Founders Edition. And I decided why not go with the Founders Edition. So yeah, so I put a deposit, 1,000 USD for the Founders Edition. And I was hoping to get some updates every once in a while, but oddly enough, I didn't get much update because they had the Orca at the same time. It's their kind of watercraft, personal watercraft system. They didn't send much update. I was a bit disappointed by that, but okay, I guess if you had something at the end. So as winter went on, still no updates, and eventually, I think in February, eventually we got some updates saying that early March we would have something interesting to try. All hyped up, and lo and behold, I was in Montreal trying their snowmobile. So I was very happy to be at their unveiling. I was surprised that there wasn't too many people. We were maybe like 50, 60 people over there. It was a nice kind of experience. I was quite happy to be there. I'm not gonna make a video about how the unveiling went because PowerMod's already made a video about the unveiling. They did a somewhat good job, but there's a few highlights on like when the microphone died up and people were complaining, oh well, it's battery powered, so that's what the snowmobile is gonna do. Well,
them in Quebec. We think it's very fitting. This is where Snowmobile. Oh, it's dead.
I guess you can't win them all, but okay. So yeah, the unveiling went pretty good, and I was able to ask quite a lot of questions about how it was made, engineering-wise, choice of materials, and all that with some of the engineers. So you can ask me pretty much every single question you can think of, and I will have an answer because yeah, I just ask so many questions. So I even took the time to make an interview with one of the guys with some special questions that questions that weren't answered in the previous podcast with what they posted. So questions like powertrain, what kind of battery they're using, why they were using this type of motor instead of another type of motor, and all that. So I'm gonna put the interview, it is in French at the end. I realized mid recording that I asked questions in French while most of my audience is in English, so shame on me. I'm gonna put subtitles if you want. The next day was I think it was March 3. It was the testing. So I was one of the original Founders Edition placeholder. Is that a thing? Anyways, I was one of the people that placed the deposit for Founders Edition, so you have a chance to try it before everybody else. So I was quite lucky to be, I think it was like the 5th or 6th person to try the Ekko that day. So not too many people had a chance to try them, so I was very happy to had a chance to try it. The only problem is that we were at Montreal that day and snow was pretty much like this, so hard snow, kind of melty a bit, but yeah, it was a golf terrain. It wasn't like mountain or anything, it was pretty flat, so it was more like an acceleration kind of feeling and how it was doing. So what were my initial impressions? Well, I was a little bit disappointed. Let me tell you why. To better illustrate the feeling, it's like imagine you're on a mountain sled, but instead of having a 36-inch front end, you have a 42-inch front end. That's exactly what we drive because apparently they damaged the A-arms prior to the testing. So we were driving the front A-arms on the Ekko, so that's the mountain sled. So we were not able to side hill and do anything too fancy. Anyways, it was flat land. So the machine was very stable, but at the same time, for some reason they had a very good set of shocks on it, but it was way too soft. You would bottom out with the slightest of bump, and it wasn't the best feeling you could have. Maybe that's because they broke the arm and they just fiddle around with the suspension to make it work for the demo. But I hope it doesn't roll out the assembly line with this because that's gonna be a problem. The other thing is that when we were driving it, I felt like if I do a parallel with the RC snowmobiles, it's like if you program the ESC, which is the speed control of the motor, it's like if you program it with 1 or 2 punch out of 9. So if you give it full gas, like you just go for it. It's gonna be very progressive. Like the track is not gonna slip and roll. It took a bit of time to get to top speed, and the top speed was limited to 60 or 70 kilometer per hour that day. So it's like it takes a while to get there, and you don't get the feeling of like the punch you were expecting. So that's my feeling. And they told me like they could reprogram the thing, and apparently that day they weren't full power, even though we were on sport mode, and it didn't feel like it was that impressive. It was fun being on it, but the acceleration was a little disappointing, and also the top speed was very low. So, but yeah, they said that the top speed was limited and the acceleration was as well. And I guess it's a good thing for the demo because some of the people that were there during the testing were not even able to turn. So what are you doing on that snowmobile? When you're going at a certain speed, say 20 kilometer per hour, and you snap it, that's when you feel the acceleration. It's not when you start from zero. I had to change spot because the sun was just killing my eyes, and even there, it's not the greatest. Anyways, during the unveiling, we had a chance to just go on the snowmobile and get a feeling on how it's doing, just without driving it. And the running board felt quite flimsy. Like you would put 1 foot on it, and you could see it flex. So I cannot imagine what it would do on mountain condition, and that's something that a lot of people told them that day is that they need to step up their game on the running board. Also, from what I could see, the rim bumper was quite flimsy, and I don't know if that's something that they planned out or whatnot, but uh, it's not strong enough in my opinion. But that being said, a few things I could see that were a problem. So that means running board and rear bumper. These could be changed easily. And regarding the front A-arms, I've been told that they're intercompatible with the BRP ones. So that means they could just go to a BRP dealership, get the A-arms and get a replacement one. Or if you go aftermarket, you can just grab what's available for the Ski-Doo and make it fit on the snowmobile. So I guess that's a huge plus. The aftermarket companies, they don't have to develop something new for that snowmobile. They could just use what's available right now. Also, they were talking a bit that day about maybe they were rethinking the cooling system to be instead of being the old tunnel with cooling, it to be only the corner of the front of the track that could be cooling system. So that would mean if you want to chop the tunnel or I don't know, do any kind of mod to the tunnel, you wouldn't have the cooling system to be worried about. So that would be a huge plus. And also, you wouldn't have the snow condensation on top of the tunnel. The good example is that if I compare my Polaris to, say, an Alpha or something like that, the Alpha doesn't have a cooling system all the way to the rear of the tunnel, so the snow doesn't accumulate on top of the tunnel, so that's weight shaving. So if I were them, I would really look into that option. One thing I was quite surprised about it is that when you see a video of that snowmobile, you're like, man, there's something missing. The noise is missing. But when you're on the seat, you don't get that feeling because one, you have the wind in your helmet, so you can hear that. You have the whine of the motor, you have the snow in the tunnel, the wheels running in the tunnel. You hear all that, so it's not like it's missing something. you still have all that noise. It's like if you take your snowmobile and you shut the motor and just go down the hill. It's about the same thing, really. So it's not really missing something, but when you see it on a distance and there's just no noise, yeah, that's when it's weird and you're like, what is this? Like, that's weird. It's really mind-boggling. The main goal of that presentation was not to look at the entire snowmobile they were making. The goal was more to show what their power system was capable of. So on that note, I give them probably a 8 or 9 out of 10. So that's a good thing because we could feel the acceleration, and even though we were limited in power and top speed and even like progressiveness of the power curve, I felt like there was something there that could be very interesting. So that's the reason why, even though the deposit for that snowmobile is refundable, I decided to keep it there, and that's gonna be my next snowmobile because there's just so much potential there. High power, even though the weight is a bit higher, you get some of the advantages of being just super responsive. So I just want to see, I just want to see what this thing is capable of, and if it's not what I expected, or if it's just not good enough, you can always resell the thing. But if nobody else just gets them to develop this, nobody's gonna get an electric sled that's good enough. So I just want to help the guys that help push the envelope and just bring something new to the table. And even though if it's not good, you can just give some advice so they can improve the product. It's not a big team. Apparently, they're just like 20 people working on this. So it's not like it's not a huge company. They just have a lot of people really passionate about their thing, and I think that's a great thing about that company. So I just want to help them. I was quite surprised because even though we were just going there, test the machine, and go to the unveiling, and then coming back the next day, I thought to myself, maybe if we find some spot that would be interesting, let's bring a snowmobile and just have some fun over there. And even though it was Montreal, it was like the snow conditions wasn't the greatest, but I told myself, well, why not? I bring one with me, and I was talking with some of the guys, and for some reason we already talked a bit on email and stuff. So I told them, well, I'm making these electric snowmobiles and radio controlled small snowmobiles, and they were like, "Oh, that's cool. You should bring one over." And I said, "Well, I have one in my car. We can maybe try it tomorrow." And they were very interested in seeing that. So the next day during the demo, I tried their snowmobiles and it was quite fun. And then I bring my snowmobile to them that day, and they were quite impressed, which is, I guess, a good thing. It's the exact same thing as their machine. The battery is in the same place, the motor is the same place, so it's just the same machine but smaller. So they had quite a lot of fun with this. So they they even made a story on Facebook, and I think they put a video on TikTok as well. So you can still have a look at this. And I was happy to see most people would just say, "Where do I buy this?" and all that. And some people just reply, "Oh, it's Pascal Werbert's one." So yeah, I guess I'm known a little bit in the snowmobile industry. I've made that snowmobile based on the Bombardier one, so the BRP one, but Bombardier seemed kind of not too inclined to develop that product. So I told Taiga, well, if he would be interested in having a partnership, we can work something that's just like your snowmobile, so looks like the Ekko, but just make it work and make it available for more people. So I wouldn't have to deal with intellectual property or just marketing stuff. So that would be great. And if that's a snowmobile that we could partner in some way to make available as an open source RC snowmobile, that would be even nicer. But I don't know if they're ready to share their files. So if that's something you'd be interested in, just send them an email. And even though it's a small team, I think they could see the potential in the marketing boost. If you see, everybody's got to start somewhere, you know. So that was my unbiased pre-review of their snowmobile, and I hope I wasn't too hard on them, but I just want to. It's still early in the game, so if they could fix these problems, I mean the snowmobile is just it's just gonna be better and greater. So I just hope they could fix them, and everybody's gonna be a little more happy about it. So yeah, expect to see their snowmobiles in my backyard next winter. I hope. I'm gonna be sure to make a few videos about it and let you know what I think of it.